Scratch that off.
Yep.
What's the typo?
Cabbage Island isn't doing business as Lobsterman's Wharf.
Just take it right out?
Yep.
Oh.
Cabbage Island is Cabbage Island.
Right. Map R9, Lot 15, located on Cabbage Island, renewal of innkeeper's license and liquor license, Class 1, 2, 3, and 4, malt, spirituous, and Venus, and special amusement permit, Class C and D. Dan?
Same. Everything was all set with Cabbage Island.
Motion to approve with any restrictions that were in place in the past.
Seconded.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments from the public? All those in favor? And the final one is for, is it Dex?
Yep.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
LLC, doing business as Ocean Point Marina.
Doing business as Lobsterman's Wharf.
Doing business, okay, that's what threw me a little bit, okay.
Yeah.
Doing business as Lobsterman's Wharf. Daniel Miller, map U16, lot 2, located at 224 Ocean Point Road. Renewal of liquor license, Class 11,
11.
and special amusement permit, Class C. Dan?
Same. Everything is good there.
Actually, it's not the same. And the reason I say that is, well, Mr. Miller has been here in the past for
Mhm.
Dex LLC doing business as Ocean Point Marina. He hasn't had Lobsterman's Wharf.
Right, this is,
So I think technically, under the eyes of the state of Maine rules, this is a new application, not a renewal for a liquor license.
So it should be just new?
And I think there are other provisions that have to be done under a new license rather than a renewal.
so he'd be fine under the Ocean Point Marina, but he wouldn't be okay.
I'd have to
as
look
far
into
as
that because I think it may go with the property where it hasn't
I don't
lapsed.
think it does.
You think under change of ownership?
Because I know when Smuggler's Cove changed.
Ownership?
That was a new application.
That was like 5 years ago, too, wasn't it?
Right, we submitted this as a new application,
Is
You
new?
did submit it as a new?
not as a renewal.
I don't want to hold them up, but at the same token, I think we want to make sure that we get it right.
Because that's how it was, this is how it was
It should
advertised.
say on there whether it's a new or renewal.
Yeah, I don't see it. If business is under new or under, if this business is new or under new ownership, indicate start date. So he did,
You indicated the start date?
yeah. So it is actually a new.
I'm just wondering, should we do?
And this also says new, Chuck.
Yeah, the special amusement. Yeah.
So the only thing I'll have to do is just check to make sure that the public notice was correct.
When did you plan on opening?
We're hoping to open for Memorial Day, so next Thursday before Memorial Day.
I can't see anything on here that would hold them up.
No. I think it's all,
But I would just ask that we change that from a renewal of the liquor license to a new
Yep.
liquor license.
Yeah, because it'd be more important for the public notice.
Sorry.
Yeah, bear with us for just a moment. I think we can actually approve the renewal for Dex LLC Ocean Point Marina. We just can't for the Lobsterman's Wharf.
right here.
Second.
It does say renewal.
So I don't know how that would have gone in.
So,
Well,
Chuck,
we do a renewal for, we do have a,
In the marina.
for the marina.
Yeah.
This is a separate application.
can we, how can we do this to not stop him from opening?
Right, I was just trying to think of.
Can we give a
something.
30-day extension. When did the last one expire? Does it
It
go
would have
calendar
been,
year?
it would have been right around this time.
Yeah.
So if we gave you can we give a 30-day extension onto the old one until,
To the
Yeah,
proper notification.
yes.
to the proper
Yes, you could do,
notification time?
yep, yep.
I mean, I think maybe that would be that way we're not stopping them from, and just make sure we get the advertising
Especially
right.
since they're looking to open on the 18th.
Right.
I'll have Bonnie amend it and
Yep.
put it in, so we'll have it in the next
We'll
2
have it on the
weeks.
next agenda.
For the next agenda, just so that that's
I'll make a
available.
motion to extend the old liquor license for Lobsterman's Wharf for 30 days while notification is worked out.
Seconded.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Yeah.
Hopefully that helps you to get you by until
Are
we
you-
can do
Are you
the,
clear what's in
Yeah,
place?
Yeah, no, I understand what takes place. I don't know that, I don't know if the old liquor license would be valid with the state, would it still?
same business, I don't know. That's something
The
that,
same business, but, I don't
Different.
think so.
New ownership.
I'll confirm, but, I mean, you're talking about the same permit, but I'll check in first thing in the morning.
We could buy, sort of do business under that license.
Yeah. I'll check in first thing in the morning with the state.
if
But
not,
that permit hasn't
What
been.
happens, you can poll us and we can all can,
Mm-hmm.
we
Right.
can all still
Mhm.
open it up.
Right.
You can poll us and we can all.
I know the state has done things similar in the past, so
They have.
I can't think of any hurdles on that for these
Like, they're
folks.
supposed to come down and do an
Right,
inspection.
right.
And
That'll be the
they're
next step for
slated
you.
to come down on Monday.
Yeah.
Right, that can still happen.
It should be able to, I'm going to confirm that first thing in the morning, however, just to make sure that we don't.
I don't see why they can't come down to do their inspection,
No,
knowing
that's
that we're going to approve this in
for them.
2 weeks.
right, it's just because of a clerical error, is the only reason why we couldn't tonight.
Yeah, it's a notification.
And for that, we apologize. And I know it doesn't help you much, but we just want to make sure we get it right, and then if there was ever a question, it wouldn't come back on you or us, that's all.
Actually, I've dealt with something similar to this on the code side before, a couple of times, where they just wanted a notification from the town.
Right, right. I just don't know if it's, because it's changed ownership, like, well,
And this was a
Well,
very,
at the end of-
very similar
Same thing
circumstance.
happened with smugglers.
Yeah, I think that was one of them that did come up, and they contacted the code office directly.
And that
so-
too was a change in ownership.
Yep. But I'll know that.
what if we can't then?
We have to go through the advertising phase, we can't avoid that. That's what stops it.
Correct.
I mean, nothing else other than the advertising right now is holding us up from signing
Right,
it.
but I mean, that's 30 days away before you can rectify that.
2 weeks.
It's 2 weeks.
2 weeks from tonight.
But still, it puts you beyond your open date, I realize
Right,
that.
right.
I don't
And
know.
actually, that's just a clerical. It really doesn't affect in terms of what the state's looking for, the requirements that they're looking for, because you have the approval. It's just that we have to put it back out to,
Right, I mean, can you
Yeah.
approve it conditionally and then re-review it?
I think that's
Propose that?
essentially what you did.
By extending the liquor license for 30 days.
Right.
Well, yeah, but that's technically extending the old ownership. Maybe we should approve this conditionally.
Because I don't think that,
You see what I'm saying? Because we're extending them to old ownership. If we approve this
The old license does not
conditionally,
belong to him.
then at least it's proving him.
But what I'm saying is, when smugglers had changed ownership as well, there was an issue with the liquor license then, and it was extended for 30 days, well, things got squared away. So if there was no issue then with the smugglers getting extended 30 days, I don't see an issue with Lobsterman's Wharf's getting extended 30 days while we get this squared away for the,
It does seem a little more secure to us to be approved on a condition than take a risk to go under somebody else's license. We'd feel much more comfortable.
Yeah,
with
I definitely can
our
understand.
license With a condition, and not pointing fingers, but since it wasn't our error, I feel like that could be a gesture gesture done for us.
Believe it or not, I'm with you. I'm just trying to figure out if we can do it.
Yeah, I understand their predicament as well.
No, but I mean, it is our fault, so I mean, it's a matter of a notification. It's gotta be advertised for what, 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Which it
Yep.
had been, but incorrectly by us. So what I'm saying is, I don't see why we can't approve it pending the fact, I mean, or
Yeah.
tentatively approved after, well, no, you can't say tentatively, you have to say it's approval upon the 2 weeks of notification.
And just, I mean, we can re-go through the process.
I don't think you need to, I mean, I don't think you need to go through the process if we're
Just
just
the
waiting on the
advertising.
2 weeks of
It
advertisement.
was our.
Am I
it was our
correct?
error.
If something comes up, then it can.
And it was advertised, it just was advertised as a renewal, we didn't have anybody coming, there's nobody in the.
So it's one word.
Screaming at
I
us.
don't think insurance would be valid.
The problem I see with
Under the
that,
old
though,
license, you're probably
If we-
exactly right.
if we approve
Yeah,
it
so that would keep
conditionally
you off
pending
1
2
week
weeks of advertisement,
A business that you could be
still the
doing.
same vote.
Right, and
Yep.
it's just all the
Right,
employees.
that's why,
Correct.
that's why I say you gotta
Yeah.
get rid of the pending. You have to basically approve it. See if you're
With the
approving.
condition that it's gone through 2 weeks of,
Which still puts them in
It's-
the bind, because if it's approved pending the 2 weeks of notice, then they couldn't start selling liquor on the 18th.
Right, they'd
Well,
have,
what was your other thing, that we would go under the old one for 30 days? And what was the terminology with that? Why can't we use the same terminology with this one?
We just did.
Because you don't have a license. That's the problem.
see, by,
Where this was noticed as a renewal, it's not a renewal because you folks now own the business.
so by extending their old one, he's trying to throw you under the umbrella of that permit, so that way you can
Right.
still sell liquor under
I
that.
think we just really questioned the state
When did you say you was opening?
Thursday.
that? Yeah.
Thursday.
Tomorrow.
There's no way to,
No, because our meeting's the 27th. I just looked on the calendar, so.
I think the safest way for us, I think, and trust me, I'm completely in your corner, but is to extend that old permit a month and have him, if we have to contact the state and say, you know, it was our error, I mean, I would think we'd be willing to do that.
Yep.
And then if the state tells Dan that we can approve it conditionally, early, then it's just a matter of he can pull us and we can ratify it at our next meeting. So depending on what the state says to him tomorrow,
so it'll essentially give you the same, what you're talking
we'll
about.
do whatever we can to make sure that it doesn't hinder you opening.
Appreciate that.
Whatever it takes, I mean, if we can.
That'll be my first order of business.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to see is a business being held up a week because of us.
Yeah, trust me, that's not what we're looking
No.
for.
And, I mean, ordinarily, a week wouldn't be that big a deal, except for it being that weekend, yeah.
Right, Memorial Day.
Oh, yeah, it's a
There's
good
a
week
lot,
in a
there's a lot of
row.
people that are
Yeah.
coming back to work
Yeah.
this week in preparation of that.
No,
Being seasonal and all.
we understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Terribly sorry about that.
Thanks.
Public comment?
Is this one license for two businesses, or what exactly is it?
No, this is one license for one business.
Right.
This is for Lobsterman's Wharf.
Second business that we own under the same.
Dex LLC owns Lobsterman's and
Ocean Point.
Ocean Point Marina.
Now you own both sides of the little mill area.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
They actually own a business that my family owned twice.
Huh? Next, we've got the approval of the minutes for 4/22/2015.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Move on to reports, Dan.
Public Works is in the process of trying to schedule repairs for the Ocean Point Road. I don't know if anybody's been out there, but there are some pretty treacherous spots that kind of got washed out. I contacted the DEP. They said as long as we're not altering it, we don't need to put in for a PBR And that's all we're gonna try to do. We're just gonna try to kind of help that area out, get it back to stable conditions. Looks like we're on schedule to have the ramps in on Murray Hill by tomorrow, if everything goes well, and Mike thought they were right on track. Mowing started, the park will be open by Memorial Day too, so it looks like we're on schedule for that. We'll be prepared for anyone who wants to come down. In code enforcement side, we have one planning board meeting scheduled for this month. That'll be next week. We're finalizing an appeals hearing and preparing 3 wharves and weirs. We have 13 building permits out. We have 4 septics and 3 plumbing permits out. So we're actually pretty busy. I think we're 3 ahead of where we were last year. Talked to Dickie in the fire department. They're rebuilding some shelving and redoing panic bars on the doors. I guess they're up for panic bar maintenance, and just general maintenance, battening down the hatches at the fire station.
That's it? Wonderful.
Oh, actually, no, there is one more item. We actually, I did go ahead and get a 2007 Dodge Grand Caravan that's actually in use today for the town vehicle. Tracy's gonna have that for the next couple days. It's a good vehicle. It was pretty close to Boothbay Blue, so the stars aligned. And that's it.
There's room in the public works, I assume, to park it in the wintertime.
Yes, yep. And I'm going to assign it a key, so I'll get a fuel key that I'll put with it, and I'll have everything available. I'll do a little training session with the rest of the staff, so they know how to use the fuel depot.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to old business. Personnel policy, this seems to rear its head for the last couple of months. And we've all got the stuff from Pat done.
Yep.
Where do we go from here? Can we direct Dan to start putting the changes that she recommends
Back in.
in?
Well, yeah, there are some that I thought maybe that you wanted that weren't necessarily addressed with what she had. I didn't know if you wanted me to work directly with what she had, or if you had some ideas that you wanted to have inserted for sure.
Maybe if we had some sort of a work session with Dan, with it sitting in front of us, both of them.
Yep.
Wouldn't that make the most sense?
I think so.
Because, I mean, it's hard to sit here and say what we want in there without it being in front of you. Can we do a 6 before our next meeting?
It worked for me.
Okay.
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock for, yep.
And if you can have copies of both the personnel policies, the one that was proposed and our old one?
Yes, I'll have the one with the highlights.
We'll table it again.
It's gonna continue to rear its ugly head.
Yes. Next up is Mark Ironman contract.
It's gone before legal then.
Is this you or Dan?
So, I know we've had the discussion about Mark's contract and where it was kind of left off, where he's worked essentially beyond the scope of the original contract. I know we had also kind of discussed the possibility of perhaps keeping Mark along if in fact the comp plan was adopted by the town and we get into the ordinance portion. Chuck and I met with Mark and we discussed where he was at and you know, whether or not he had a sum total in mind that he thought was fair or appropriate. And in my estimation, I think Mark was very deferential and you know, essentially left it up to the Board of Selectmen to do what they thought was right. That was my take on the meeting, Chuck.
That was my take on it as well. No. He showed us what they've expended so far. I don't think any of us thought that we'd be looking at 3 years for completion of a comp plan, but that is what it has taken us so far. Planning decisions, as of the meeting that we'd had with Mark, had expended over $80,000 working on the plan.
And we paid them originally what?
30. And that's having 2 folks working on the plan that they were paying less than the normal hourly rate, because this was their first time working with Mark on a project like this.
Right.
I don't think, doesn't it, I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea once the time comes, but, you know, having him help with the writing of the ordinances, because it sounds to me that when the comp plan is done and passed, whatever form it is with the town, correct me if I'm wrong, but the zoning ordinance basically needs to be redone completely.
Per state law, once your comp plan is adopted by the voting body, then you have 2 years to rework your zoning ordinance to make it match your comp plan.
So, I mean, I think that, am I wrong in saying that it's too early to make that decision? I mean, really, until we get closer to a finished I mean, I know it's, but until we get closer to a passed product.
The hopes right now, based on our last meeting, is to have this on a ballot for the November meeting.
Right.
So that would be a special town meeting, but as we've done in the past, have it during November voting, that way we get the biggest bang for our buck by people coming out. We've got a couple of things to look at our next meeting, and then we should have a final draft. And the board would like you guys to weigh in as well. Having worked with the planning board, they like the product that we have right now with the few changes that were made. So
I have a hard time, I'm gonna keep going back to this, I respect the gentleman, you know, for working way outside of the scope, and, you know, maybe he's saying he's honoring his contract, but he, as of January of whatever year it was, 2 years ago, a year ago, he should have kind of came back to us and said, my contract's up, but we kind of still need to renegotiate another fee, another salary. I almost feel like we're kind of almost being held over a barrel. I realize he's saying flat out, you know, it's whatever we feel is right. I think that's noble, but I mean, at the same token, what I feel is right is to pay the man what he's worth and what he's got into it. It would have just been nice to know what that would have been a year ago.
But the reality of it is, he has not, as near as I can tell, from the get-go, I mean, this has kind of come up for the last 2 or 3 months, and this hasn't come from him.
Yeah,
None of it. It's come from one of the comp plan members, approached Jim at the time, thinking that we should give him more money or something. You guys had to approach him and almost force it out of him, so to speak. I mean, it wasn't like he came to you complaining that he wasn't getting underpaid, that he was underpaid.
no, he had said that this was a big undertaking. They knew it when they signed on, and he just showed us the figures, and we talked about it, and we talked about the possibility of them staying on board to help with the zoning ordinance when it was over. He was going to work on some figures and get them for Dan, so we'd have some idea what those look like. To be honest, he really wasn't upset.
Which, you know, I mean, it's kind of the good guy. You don't see that very often.
No,
If they
you
sign a
don't.
contract and they'll hold to it,
right, they're gonna honor
which is
it.
pretty amazing.
But
So,
at the same token, I don't know if it looks all that good for the town of Boothbay to be basically undercutting this guy 50 grand. I know.
either way you go. Because if all of a sudden the town of Boothbay said, you did a good job, let's give him another $10,000, then you give the appearance that throwing taxpayer money
Yep.
after a contract. You know what I mean? So I kind
That,
of.
that being said, the way I read that contract, it was a one-year contract.
Right. But he
Well, that's my
didn't,
whole point.
right, he didn't come to
After-
us.
Right.
After that year, he should have come back to our board and said, that year is expired, we need to negotiate from this point in time forward.
Right.
And that's the part that I don't wanna say I'm offended by it, I mean, I guess it's great that he's willing to just keep on plugging away, but now we're here, kind of in this torn moment where I feel compelled that I should pay this gentleman, but at the same token, I should have known that it was time to pay him a year ago. And
But I think, I mean, as he gets the numbers together, I mean, I think that it makes sense. We cannot expect the planning board, I mean, they're essentially volunteers to try to undertake a complete zoning rewrite on their own. That, I mean, that's not realistic. That's not fair of us to ask
Having
them.
been through that when I was on the planning board, it takes forever.
Oh, I'm sure. And
And
that's
we
not.
only have 2 years this time to
Right.
get it
But-
squared away.
But that's not fair to them either, really. I mean, they're volunteers for the town. That's not fair for us to ask
Yeah.
them to do. So, I mean, I just think that, we ought to visit it once we have the numbers and stuff, and as we get closer to November, so if we, as long as we feel that it's gonna pass come November time, then you kind of keep rolling with it. You know what I mean? You kind of don't break stride.
Yeah, what the comprehensive planning committee is looking at is working whatever changes we need to at the next meeting, which is, what, a week from Monday, Dan?
Yes, yep, not
And-
this, but the next.
Then we'll be setting public hearing dates.
So, a question for you, being that you've been to most of your comp plan meetings. Has there been any discussion about cell towers in the comp plan? Because to my knowledge right now, the planning board is working on a pretty in-depth cell tower plan. And my question is, if we've got to rewrite the zoning ordinance anyways, what's the point of trying to come up with some 20-page document about cell towers in town if you're gonna rewrite the zoning ordinance anyways?
Yeah. Well, whatever is come up with now would either have to fit in with the comp plan or it wouldn't. And there was some talk around it with the planning board, the comp plan and the planning board around cell towers, which would be considered infrastructure. And there is mention in there. How
So-
it'll all work out in the wash, that really depends on what the zoning ordinance looks like.
So, I mean, it sounds to me like maybe the planning board ought to kind of sit tight on trying to rewrite any zoning ordinances at all until after November. Right?
I think what I would recommend is, especially where they have been working with the comp plan committee on the formulation of the document, that they keep that in mind when they're reformulating any zoning ordinances over the next couple of years.
Right.
Because if they can formulate them around the comp plan when it passes in November, then all you have to do is slide it in. If you don't, if you go by what we have now and aren't looking toward the future, you're gonna be rewriting them anyway every 6 months.
I mean, there's some stuff, correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but that kind of has to be done, like, was it the DEP, is it the 1,000?
Yeah, we'll have to adopt those standards. I mean, that's mandatory for everyone.
So that's mandatory, and is the planning board working on them right now?
Not currently, but that they'll be working on catching up to speed.
So they're not working on them, but they're working on a cell tower ordinance that's not mandatory.
Cell tower ordinance is not mandatory.
But the direction from this board was get it done,
What's that?
a cell tower ordinance.
I don't remember that.
Me either.
When we were having the discussions and we went through what we went through with the cell tower and over in East Boothbay,
Right.
they were told, come up with something.
I don't remember that. You may be right, but.
It was put on hold while we were in negotiations, deliberations, whatever you want to call it, while we were in court. And it was picked up again afterwards.
So what are they gonna put in this cell tower?
I don't know. No
I
idea.
mean, you can't restrict it too much, because no matter what you do, if it's needed somewhere, FCC can overrule
Right.
the ordinance, and it can be a waste of time.
I mean, that's a conversation to have with them,
Yeah,
not
I
here,
know,
really.
I know.
I mean, my point is I just don't wanna see us writing ordinance, spending all their time, I mean, because, let's face it, they're volunteers.
Yeah,
And they're spending all their time on creating something that, if it isn't going to work with the comp plan.
yeah.
And that's what my question I had, because I don't know enough about the comp plan to know what's in there about cell towers.
I mean, Chuck's saying they're working with the comp committee, so they have to be looking at it through that comp plan's eyes, you would think. But I hope, like you, I hope they're not burning up all their time on the stuff that's not mandatory and not looking at the stuff that is gonna be mandatory. But as long as they're working with the comp plan committee, hopefully, maybe what'll end up happening is they'll be able to hand mark, I'm in their ordinance, and he'll say, yep, perfect, and it can go right into the next one. I mean, I think that's the goal, right?
The more that can be done in that direction, the less work they'll have in the long run.
Right, the thing that'll junk them is if they look at now, and they do the now committee, comp plan, and then all of a sudden when we get it in 6 months from now or a year from now, we gotta basically do an entire rewrite, and that would be counterproductive.
The thing is, the soonest would really vote on any ordinance changes would be November anyway.
Right,
So they should go hand in hand.
My guess is the comp plan must address that DEP 1000. I mean, if that's law now, then it's gotta be in there.
I'm not sure that they have to reference it because it is
Okay.
mandatory. I mean, it's recognized. I think you have to reference DEP 1000.
Right.
And just that you adhere to those. And then you can go above that, but you can never go
Can't go
below
below
that.
that, right.
Yep, once you've referenced
I
it.
don't remember a clause on DEP 1000 in the comp plan.
I don't think so. I think that'll come down to it would be vision versus actions on that.
And that's more of a zoning ordinance thing
Yep.
anyway, so it
Correct.
wouldn't be in the comp plan, it'd be in the zoning ordinance
Yep.
itself.
And I think probably you don't have to because it is mandatory.
Okay.
An unfunded mandate coming down from the state?
No way.
Imagine that.
Yeah,
Surprise.
they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the Alma Fund request. We have our list.
Yep, and as I was tasked with finding out how many were from Boothbay in the Almer Fund group, and it looks like, well, there's tentatively 13 students going, and so a little over half, 7 of the 13 are from Boothbay. I did have a meeting with BRHS Principal Dan Welch in which we discussed the Almer Fund, and he offered the availability of a standing review board the school uses to determine grants and scholarship availability for students. My only concern was that because this is the Almer Fund directed for Boothbay students, and you can see what I wrote, I mentioned if the Board of Selectmen wanted to entertain the idea that they may have concerns and criteria of their own for this specific fund, as well as the inclusion of a board member or designee, he said that would be fine with the school. You know, if that's something that you thought would be useful, or that you want, or if you had criteria that you thought should layer over what their normal criteria is. Obviously, we have the hard and fast criteria. It has to be a Boothbay student and
Right,
furthering their high school education.
right.
right.
My only thought is if this was monies given to the town of Boothbay for this specific thing, it wasn't given to the school system. So I think the decisions need to come from this board here. I appreciate
Mhm.
Principal Welch offering up that committee, but I think the decisions need to come from this board. I just think that we need to come up with some more criteria to go with the hard and fast criteria.
So having said that, Chuck, would you like me to see what they use? Would that be a good way to start?
For criteria?
Yep.
Yeah.
See what they use for their criteria, just to, give you guys something, a springboard to work from,
Right.
that you could either add or take away
Yeah.
based on what you see.
Yeah.
Would that be helpful?
But we still have one request before us now that we tabled from last time,
Right.
because we wanted to see this list. What do we do with it? Because we've got
My thoughts,
7 and we've already awarded to 1.
my thoughts for this year is the application did come in.
Right.
I think that we need to award it, but we also need to put a hold on awarding any more scholarships from this fund until we can get some hard and fast criteria that will cover everybody. I mean, if we keep giving out $850 for plane tickets every time somebody steps forward, pretty soon we're not gonna have any money to give out to anybody.
I hate putting a hold on it. I'm not saying
No,
you're wrong,
I know.
Yeah.
but it's probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, because they have to have this money, you know,
Right.
way ahead of time, not.
Right.
But the
Oh, no.
only thing that doesn't, I'm trying to think aloud here for a minute. We've given it to one.
Yep.
If we're gonna give to the one that we had before us at last meeting, so 2 out of the 7 get awarded, and if the other 5 was hoping to use that, we've just put a stop to that. And how is that fair to the other 5 because they were slower than the first 2? You see what I'm saying?
I'm not sure I'd say that they were slower than the first 2. I mean,
They just weren't as quick to get their application in. I'm saying, you know what I mean? That's what I mean by being slow to get the application in. Because I mean, I have heard that there's been a couple other ones that was going to apply.
the thing is, no matter what we do, if we
Keep
change the
going up.
criteria now, and we've already awarded one the $850, really, then how is it fair to any of the others when we change the criteria?
We've got 6 other ones from the town of Boothbay there. I would rather see us just give $500 a piece, three grand to the whole lot for Boothbay. I mean, at least it's something, and then if you're gonna put a freeze, you just said, okay, that's done. None of them are going to be,
Well, then you've given
I know.
them 500, and you gave the first one 850.
I know.
Trouble is too, there's a lot of, some parents can, you know, really afford it, and then there's others that can't. That's
Uh-huh.
that's what the, you know, the problem is.
It's a conundrum.
It
You know,
is.
You know, yeah, it
But-
is, yeah.
I don't know, there's really no
So we know.
good way to do it
We know
fairly.
the second one
just-
got plenty of money,
Let's
so.
try and get my head around this. So you're saying $3,500 a piece for the ones that are going. And then at that point in time, we put a cease and desist order onto this Alma Fund until we figure out some criteria?
Well, if we cover all of the Boothbay students that are on there this year, and they only go once every 2 years, then we shouldn't be seeing.
No.
You
But
go
there's a
over
France,
here.
there's a France club coming too.
He knows it, and I know it both, because I've already sat through this, which one of the things I will tell you about this whole Alma Fund and these requests that are coming in, there's only 3 ways to pay for these things. You either get a monthly bill at about $280, you have 3 large chunks at about $1,000 a piece, or you can pay the whole thing right up front if you want $3,085. And yes, these are real figures, because I just sat through the class here a while back. Now, that's for the France one, I'm not sure what this one is, German? Is it
Yeah.
German? I think this is German. So that might, figures might be a little bit different, but when somebody's asking for $850 for the plane ticket, that's not how it's being paid for.
At least with the French, but we don't know about the German. I mean, you've got a son in it.
Yep.
You must.
Yep, I've already done it
How
once.
is it go?
Well,
Is it
it's
payments?
different this year, and it's actually a lot more organized, because the reason they're asking for the money now is so they can secure the airplane,
Right,
the tickets ahead of time and and secure a better price. The last time they'd gone, I think we paid like 3 weeks before, and we paid a premium for the ticket, and then, yeah, of course, there are other expenses involved with the trip. Not as much, I don't believe we touched what you'll be hitting with the French adventure. But it was, it would help to defray the cost substantially for a family.
I know the French class, or the France trip, is done through a company now.
Yep.
Whereas it doesn't sound like this gap is.
It's not.
Okay, so that's the difference then.
Okay.
the company only offers 3 payment plans, 3 payment options with France. This sounds totally different.
And part of the savings there is through the GAP program, they're staying with host families.
Yeah, right.
So dinners essentially are taken care of, obviously your lodging is taken care of.
Right.
So there's real savings there, where doesn't sound like it's the same there.
Nope,
with
definitely not.
the- Yeah, that's
That being said, and these are all GAP kids that we're talking about on this?
correct.
I like Steve's idea. Do it across the board, and then we just shut it down until we get some better criteria.
I mean, if we get an application in, I don't even know if you shut it down. We just put it as a priority, and we're not gonna have any more for a while with this. I don't believe. So we just put that as a priority to get a policy in place.
Well, we only got one
Well, if we're gonna put a
application.
hold on the disbursement of any funds,
Got one of them done.
you don't want
already.
any applications
This
going
is the
in
one.
either.
Yeah, but
Because-
my point,
Yeah,
what
you
I
just
meant by
have this
that, but I
to look at.
is, do we need to put a hold? Once we do this, the GAP program's done. We're not giving any more to
The
GAP.
GAP program is done, but other programs are not.
Right, there's other students out there that could still be applying for the Elmer Fund. It's,
I think when we first started giving money out from the Elmer Fund, I think it was for, I'm trying to think of the name, the ships, the Harvey
oh,
Gannon.
right, right,
Yes.
yeah, it was,
Yeah.
Yeah,
the ocean classroom.
Yes.
Right,
yeah, right. they did.
And I thought that was, it's a great cause.
absolutely.
I think all these are. I mean, don't
Yes.
get me wrong. I mean, I'm not complaining about them, but you're right.
No.
We're gonna go through the money some quick. And I do like the fact of handing, all right, you got a France trip, you have a German trip, whatever. Say, we got this many kids and we can give out a
The
chunk
thing,
of
if,
change.
if we can give out a chunk to
2
Right.
to
any of the
23,000.
organizations that are
Out of,
looking
it's, you know,
for
it's
money,
73.
that
I think
still
is left in the account, but you can't touch the original.
means that they're gonna have to go out
So I
and
think it's
fundraise.
23.
And if they have to go out and fundraise, they can do it as a group.
Thousand
Right.
to use.
I still
One-
think,
News,
you know, honestly, I mean, we give out this, and I just don't see a need to put a stop on it. I mean, the reality of it is, the money's there
yeah,
for the
right,
kids.
right, so, I mean,
You know what I mean? So if,
if there wasn't enough money there, you know, it'd be an issue, but they got, there's plenty of money in the thing, so that, you know, it shouldn't be an issue.
it's just nice to see it used.
Yeah, right.
It is nice to see
Right.
it used, but remember, you can't use the original 50.
Right.
You can only use the interest,
Yeah,
and ain't
no,
nobody
that's
getting any.
20-something thousand in there.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That we can
Yeah,
use.
yeah, so that's-
20,
Yeah.
what is the balance right
We're
now?
probably in the 23 to
That's what I thought too.
$23,000 range.
Yeah, but it's not gaining a lot.
Right.
Well,
Once you
when
start
you-
pulling out,
Yeah.
you're gonna be making that much less.
Less,
Mhm.
And at
So can anybody-
0.25, it's not
So
gonna.
can
have-
anybody else make donations to the Elmer Fund if they
Absolutely.
wanted to?
Yeah, anybody in the audience could?
Yeah.
Bill,
Right.
Bill, you don't have to buy us lunch, buy us dinner, you can just go ahead and donate. I hate to see, if we freeze it, it's still gonna take a while to do it, and if a kid comes, I hate to freeze it and then have a kid come that can truly need it
Right,
and not be able to give it to them, that's my point.
right.
You know, it's there to be spent on kids furthering their education, however you wanna word it.
True, but I think if we're gonna give a lump sum now to the GAP folks, I think we're setting precedent
I-
for any future
I do too,
gifts
so-
as well.
So are we right back to square one then? Do we handle these on an individual basis and really get together and try to figure out policy? Figure out some type of criteria?
Yeah, I think, yeah. That's what I
Nobody,
was-
no other applications are in right now. We have one other application that we're looking at.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're asking for how much?
850.
Same.
So again, no criteria was given with this original gift?
Just has to be a high school.
And they're
From
gonna be better in their
Boothbay.
high school education.
In town of Boothbay,
Boothbay resident, high school education.
yeah.
But you could make the argument, by the way that's worded, to better your high school education, you could make the argument that going to your first year of college, you're bettering your high school education.
I wouldn't.
I'm just saying, you
I
could
wouldn't
make that
fault
I'm
it.
not-
You could make the argument, but it doesn't pass a straight face test.
Right. I was gonna say that.
But I just, either we give it to all of them or give it to the one, we kind of have to do something.
Well, yeah, but-
My call right
yeah,
now
yeah, but
says,
this is-
there's
this
too
is
many
just a list of
variables,
people.
let's handle them one at a
Right.
time and
Well,
get some
we got
policy set.
Two to put
Right.
in for it, so.
Can you
We should-
get,
We should have a cutoff date so that, you know, once
Can you get that criteria that they use, this committee uses?
I'll see if I can have that to you
At least
first thing in the
by
morning, and I'll
next-
get the, I'll make sure that
They ask for a certain amount, correct?
Yep.
This person asked for a certain amount.
Yeah.
Yes.
But for instance, Steve was just saying that if everybody asked, or dividing the money up among so many Boothbay students. So if you're gonna handle it on a one-by-one with each person asking, keeping in mind how many students there are, you could say award him
Right, you could set a limit.
$500 so that you knew even if all of them applied, you wouldn't be going over X amount for that trip or something. You could kind of control it. You could handle it on a one-by-one basis, but control how much you would spend for that particular trip by awarding them. Am I making any sense?
You are. And I thought about trying to figure out a way to put a cap on it, but then it's tough, because if you really had somebody come in here with some real need,
Yeah.
They
I don't-
might need more than another one.
and I'd be pretty guilty.
Some of the kids on the trip might not need your help at all.
I think the most we've
And
ever
that's-
awarded is 1,200.
I honestly think that we need to have a financial, I mean, there's gonna be a financial in here that says if you need or don't need. I hate to say it that way, but I think it's true.
Well, that could be part
You
of
really
your
wanna be
criteria,
fair.
your criteria, asking them to prove or asking them to explain to you or show how else they are going to raise money or come up with money or what they're willing to do themselves.
I think that is part of the form,
Yeah, right.
that part of it, but I think that's a good point.
Go ahead, Frank, you were.
If you really want to be fair, what you do is you figure out how much money you can give and still have the fund self-sustaining and divide it amongst the number of people that apply.
Right, but
I'm
you
not saying
don't,
that's the way to do it, but that would be the fair way to do it.
right, but the problem is you don't know how many people are gonna apply.
Well, you put a date, you say, by July 1st, you have to apply for this. If you have 5 people that applied, and you can give out $2,800 and still keep the fund not going in arrears, you take 28, divide it by 5.
You can't put a date though, because it could be different,
Depends on what they're
different
doing.
things. It could be something that's happening next
Right.
summer or different next fall. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
they-
different
they-
projects,
Apply
different
for
reasons.
the next year, I guess.
You know what, you could always do it quarterly.
Yeah, this is for next year anyway.
You could always have quarterly dates,
Yeah.
spring, summer, fall, and winter. I mean, there's nothing saying you couldn't, but, I mean, that's putting the cart before, we gotta see what the school uses and stuff first.
Do you see how many places this conversation has gone so
Yep.
far?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
10 minutes?
Right.
Well, they usually go during vacation weeks, and you know when the vacation weeks.
Right. So what do we wanna do with Kate Deku? That's who's before us right now. She's requested $850.
Right.
Yep. I make the motion, we award it.
I'll second
Award $850.
I think we have to, because we've already set precedent.
I agree.
it. Yeah,
All
right.
right, any more discussion?
Not right now.
All those in favor? And can we have that on the agenda for next meeting, the Alma Fund?
Yep, but you want that as soon as I can push that to you, and then any other pieces I can find that would be supportive.
Maybe we
You
can
want those?
actually discuss it during the workshop with Dan about the personnel policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of figure it for that docket?
Yep.
Okay. And I know we had kind of discussed reaching out to some of the other benefactors in the region,
Some of the other
Lions and the Rotary. Do you want me to see if, what
That will,
they're,
that will come as we're developing a
Can
policy.
I make a
But if
suggestion?
he's talking about criteria.
Criteria.
Yes, please.
yep, so you could cross-reference,
I see what you're saying,
you
yeah.
could cross-reference a few different groups.
I know we don't like a hold, but I'd suggest a hold for the next 2 weeks. That way, we don't get swamped with applications.
Right, because all of a sudden now they're gonna say, oh,
Yep.
they're
They're
gonna,
gonna change the criteria in 2 weeks, let's get it in beforehand.
Yeah. That's why we said we should set a date that they can do this, and that's it.
I still have a hard time with it. Quarterly's okay, I don't mind quarterly so much, but I don't like just a date, because, look, as a prime example with my own little heartache, I would've loved it if my daughter would've come to me and talked to me about the France trip, back in January when I had all kinds of tax money, and I could've said, sure, no problem. Things come up unexpectedly, and you don't know when the kid's gonna hit you with this, so, I really have a hard time with just one particular date randomly placed in the year someplace. I don't mind quarterly so much, at least that gives you a couple options in the course of a year, but just a random, and I'm not saying random, it wouldn't be random, it would be a set date, but
Yeah.
for all I know, my high school daughter would come home the day after that date and say, oh, by the way, they just mentioned this at school today. And I go, that Alma phone would be some nice right now. And I'm not saying I'm the one that's gonna be using it, but that's to any parent out there.
Get us any information you can.
I'll get you whatever I can, so you can at least have an informed decision before you
Yeah,
get there.
You could rattle this around for hours.
Yeah.
So do we need a motion to put a hold on any for the next 2 weeks?
As much as I hate the idea of it, I think we probably should.
I'll second it.
I think you made it, I'm pretty sure I seconded it, but that's okay.
Either way.
How you gonna do that?
All right, motion's been made and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Wonderful.
What was the motion?
To just put a 2-week hold on any more Alma Fund
Any
requests until we can
right,
get
application.
some sort of a policy. No more old business, correct?
No,
We didn't sneak
correct.
nothing in
No,
after.
no, no.
Okay. Move on to new business. Request for funding from the Boothbay Region Seniors, again. And I say that because somehow it didn't make it on the warrant again.
Yeah.
It didn't, did it?
No, it didn't. And it was supposed to have.
We don't have this money, we don't get till
And
July, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so
based
we-
on
yeah,
what we
yeah.
did last year, I'll make a motion that we take $1,000 out of the selectmen's contingency fee to give to the
Yeah.
Boothbay Region seniors.
Yeah, otherwise,
Seconded.
they can't get it till
Right.
July.
July 1, right?
Right.
I'm perfectly,
How much was that?
1,000.
$1,000.
Well, they won't get it till July
July
1
1.
anyways. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, July
But it
one.
wasn't on the warrant, Douglas, somehow it didn't get put on the warrant for the voters to approve.
Okay,
Last year also.
Right.
Yep.
yeah.
Is there anything I should do different?
Well,
No, just get it to Dan next year.
yeah, just get
I
the,
did hand deliver it.
And you will make sure it gets on there next
Yeah,
year.
I will make
I was
sure.
looking at cell phones out here, and they said, oh, yes, I got that too, so I brought it.
yeah.
And we do apologize for the oversight, Deb.
Yes.
That's perfectly okay.
But,
I'm thrilled. And thank you both, everybody, for
We need
letting the seniors
Motion.
use the fire
Yes.
station.
There's been a motion and a
Yes.
second.
Motion's been made and second. Any more discussion?
What's that?
All those in favor?
Raise your hand,
Taking the
Douglas.
$1,000 out of the selectmen's contingency fund.
Yeah.
He raises his hand and says, yep.
Yeah. We can tell him to do anything.
Yeah.
Post office purchase update?
So this is just, Paul Weaver had gotten back in touch after I told him that that it had passed on the warrant. And you can see, essentially, he's asking what you would like for terms in regard to the postal service.
I think the longer the better, the longer the lease, in my
Yeah, right.
opinion. It's guaranteed money.
Yeah, if the post office is willing to extend it further than what he's already discussed with him, I think it's an extra win-win for us.
And so I'd look into that option for the third too. Okay.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And then Sally can save us a bunch of money and draw up do the closing, because, I mean, I know she did with the post office, rather than go through a whole closing like you or I would have to. Sally handled it all for peanuts compared to what it would cost.
Yep. I think we're fine there, as long as that's okay with everybody, but the real question was, is that what you want to do in terms of the lease agreement?
Everyone agree that it should be as long as
As
possible.
long as possible.
Yeah, as long as possible is right.
Well, that was easy. Next, we have a joint economic committee memorandum of agreement between us and Boothbay Harbor. Just had it. What did I do with
You need one?
Well, I thought we just got to appoint some members.
it? So we have a MOA.
That's one of the things you want to look at, but it also,
Yeah, right.
on that, if you have your, Steve?
Yep.
Okay. So just briefly, we had the meeting last week, and it went really well. Just kind of catching up. I was actually learning. Everybody else was catching up. And I think this is something that you had looked at your last meeting, I believe, in October. And so there were just a couple of changes in there that Denise needed to make, which she did. I believe they decided on their constituents for the board. And they also suggested we have a member from the Chamber of Commerce that would be the 9th member. In other words, they'd be the deciding vote on anything that comes up for the committee. Other than that, it was pretty low level, just kind of catching up to speed. I will send out a doodle poll to have a follow-up meeting. But this is just for your eyes, so you could kind of take a look at it and see if it.
Are they looking to sign this now? I didn't make the last one.
Well, we gotta come up with some, numbers to put on there.
Yeah,
Right.
we have to come up with 4 constituents as well.
We have a list of 6
We had a number of
that
applications.
Dan found.
Well,
Should
I
we
could only
interview them,
find
though?
6. If you are aware that there were more, I mean, I cannot find the file. But I did get the 6. But if you believe
But
there
you
are
get us
more.
those names,
Yep.
and then we can look at it and see if there was anybody missing.
And can you also, you mean now, or do you want it?
I'd say for the next meeting.
Have it for the
But
next
can
meeting.
you contact them too and make sure they're still interested? I mean, this was 2 or 3 months ago
Yes,
now.
I'll follow up. I just wanted to, I mean, it's one of those crossover items that I just
But if-
couldn't locate.
But if a couple of them don't want to anymore,
Mhm.
then that's an easy decision. But if we've got 6 for 4 positions,
Yep.
then we've got to pare it down, and probably the only way to do that's to talk to them
Yep.
individually.
Yeah,
Yep.
get rid of him.
Yeah, I can reach out to them tomorrow and just confirm that, I think so, because I had some people asking me as we were leading up to the meeting anyway. So I think everybody's still interested, but I'll confirm tomorrow.
I'm gonna move D down to the bottom, okay? We've only got one more thing anyways, it just makes sense.
Yep.
Dan, we're gonna skip E
Okay? Yep,
till next meeting.
yep.
Let's get D.
Yeah,
E, E.
E. Next up is the appointment of Art Dunlap as code officer, LPI, and building inspector.
Well, we ain't gonna do the chairman, vice chairman?
That got bumped to the bottom.
So we need a motion to appoint Art.
For Art.
Okay.
Yeah, for this year.
Right,
For the,
Right.
for the 1
For the
year.
interim.
right.
Second.
Seconded? Any discussion? All those in favor?
That's for 1 year, right?
Yep.
It's actually till the end of June, because then we have to redo it again, right? Isn't that how it goes?
Yeah, June 30.
That's another thing, maybe, probably next meeting, can you get together a list of who's up
Yep.
For appointments.
for appointments?
For
'Cause
appointments?
we're-
Yes.
We'll be a month away then.
Yep.
I wrote one more thing under new business that isn't there, I just thought of it when I was sitting here before the meeting. Audit. Do we want to go with the same auditor? We're not under contract with them. Do we want to go with the same auditing firm we've used for the last few years, or do we want to look around?
Well, it's always good business practice to put it out to bid and see what you can get.
Dan believes, we had this discussion before the meeting, and believes that we've used them for 2 years now.
I think it's been longer than that.
I just
So too,
saw Fred was 12.
Really?
Yeah.
So he did fiscal year 11?
No, fiscal year 12,
Oh.
ending 12. I just went in after we checked, after we were talking, just to check to see where we were at.
I
The last
know- I
two
know
were-
when they were here last time. That was the 3rd time he'd been here.
Royer?
Yep.
I thought it was 3 too, but.
Because I just pulled the audits, just to, because I figured I should, just to cross my Ts and dot my Is.
He could have done it in 12, but it could have been 11.
Right, for the fiscal year 11.
And the only reason I remember that is the first 2 years he came, he'd brought the lady with him, and he had the gentleman with him this last time.
Yeah. Right. So what do you think we should do? Or should we go have him seek out proposals? Or should we stick with them for another year? I mean, it's kind of crunch time now, so if we're gonna do it, we really need to make a decision, because we're only a little over a month away from the end of the year.
I think we should look at it.
Yeah, I always think it's good to put it out there and see See if we can get some good bids.
Get some RFPs.
And I don't
Together.
think I don't think it's unreasonable to ask the same auditing company we're using now.
Oh, absolutely, see if they can sharpen their pencil a bit.
Use the one that we used just recently.
Mhm.
Fred Brewer is with P something, PF,
He's with
PB
a
or
different
something,
firm
right?
now.
I mean, there's several out there, so we
Mhm.
could get 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I can get that pushed out.
I think at least we're doing our due diligence.
Yep.
Okay. Do we need to do that as a motion to have him go out for RFPs?
I don't think we for RFPs, do we?
No, because we'll make a bid,
We'll
make a motion on who we
Which
decide
one?
on.
Who we
Okay.
award to, but
Yeah.
not.
Okay.
Yeah, we can direct him to put out the RFPs, but we don't need a motion on it.
You have anything else for new business?
No.
Next up is the annual selection of chairman and vice chairman.
I know,
Dale's vice chair. He wants to go chair.
yeah, I was gonna make that motion too, Douglas, to elevate Dale. Well, we'd had the conversation a few years ago to rotate amongst ourselves.
Yep. I'm gonna put it out there just so people can hear it, not so much that I care. I told Chuck before the meeting, I'm more than willing to take the seat. I've sat on this board long enough now that I have no problem with moving over a seat and running the show, but the one thing that scares me right now, at least for the next few months, is my accessibility. I am way swamped at work. You're not gonna, during the day, I am pretty much almost unavailable. You can catch me on the phone once in a while, but it just, I know Steve is very accessible, very able to be tracked down if need be. He's in a stationary place where people can find him, where I could be on any tip of this peninsula. Again, it's your guys' decision, not mine. If I'm nominated and I'm elected, I will sit there, fine as kind. I still am just very hesitant right now with what's going on, that's all. I gotta put it out there, I gotta be honest.
No, and that's totally understandable.
But other than that, I'm willing to do it, but I really want people to consider the fact that he's easily tracked down.
That's what we have the vice chair for also.
Right. I do believe that it should change. I'll be the first to tell you that.
Mhm.
So, you know, that's,
We've had this discussion a million times. At some point in time, I'm sliding over, I kinda get this figure.
and don't get me wrong, it's not that I haven't learned a lot doing it,
Mhm.
but I do believe that everybody should do it,
Yeah, right, we do.
so.
And you've done it in the past, right?
Oh, I've done it in the past, yes, I have.
I just have to rule that out, Doug.
That was,
More than once.
that was back when they had candles
Has
instead of
Steve,
lights.
has Steve Ham ever been
40
chair?
years ago, maybe.
You've sat on this board longer than I have. Okay, I just wanna keep that in mind for next year. That's probably why I decided not to show up today.
Good riddance.
Maybe he's smarter than I am. I gotta go. I'm on. I'm just being sarcastic.
I'll make a motion that
Well,
we,
now we bring you together.
Yeah, that would brings it out.
I'll make the motion that Dale Harmon become the chairman of the board for the Board of Selectmen.
Second, right?
Motion been made, no. Motion's been made and second, any discussion? All those in favor? None. Who wants to be vice chairman?
I make a motion that we appoint Douglas Burnham vice chairman.
I knew that was coming. That's okay, I'll do it.
Second. Oh, right, I'm officially here now, aren't I? Sorry, motion's been made and seconded, any discussion? All those in favor?
Marvelous.
I make a motion, or I'll entertain a motion to, oh, wait, we still got a public comment, I'm sorry. Any public comment?
I had a question about Mark Harmon's contract.
Yes.
Either he or his firm has spent $80,000 in the 3 years? Is that,
That's what I was just told, yes.
okay, so,
Or racked up in time, not really spent.
well, accrued.
Wow. mean,
I
anywhere you
can
go,
supply, I can supply the actual hard numbers tomorrow if you want.
Basically, he's on a deficit.
Yes.
Yes.
of about 50,000, about
Okay.
$50,000.
And what did you guys decide to do about that? You still thinking about it, or?
Well, I hate to say it, but that is kind of what we're doing, I think. He's now, he's gonna throw us a proposal to come back in and work on our ordinance changes. Apparently, he's willing to do that even though we owe him $50,000.
He said that he was gonna work up some numbers and see if he could get them to Dan. Usually zoning ordinance changes are billed by the hour, though.
Okay?
Yes, that's what he said.
He said they usually
It's a
don't
little,
contract out.
little cleaner than,
Yeah.
Is he gonna do that within the next month, or next week, or whenever?
he'll probably reach out to me here pretty soon, since we have a meeting coming up on Monday anyway, so we generally start our correspondence early next week, the week before.
You got a meeting on the 18th?
Geez, God, Bill.
Because the week after is 25th, isn't that?
Yeah, we meet first and third.
Okay, super.
Is that all for public comment?
And
Oh, no, guess not.
on the Boothbay Region Seniors, it was 2 years in a row that they did not make the warrant.
Bit
Unfortunately,
embarrassing.
yes.
Any idea why, or if you knew the
Oversight.
answer, it wouldn't have happened?
An oversight.
Oversight, okay.
Yeah, trust me.
They are an organization that has been put through at town meeting for many, many
It's
years.
been at least 10 years.
What do they actually do?
I don't know if I,
They get together weekly
It's
at
more
least.
of a social sort of club. It's a way for the seniors that can't go other places to get together,
Social
and have
interaction.
a hot lunch
Yep.
to socialize, and they do provide programs. They'll have entertainment, they'll have speakers, and occasionally take them on trips that some of them might not be able on their own to get out of
Okay.
town and go on a trip.
We give it, yeah,
I'm not.
I'm just
Right.
speaking because my
I'm not familiar
mother
with
is a
it.
member, so I know what she
Yeah,
does.
they meet at the
we
fight.
give 1,000, Boothbay Harbor gives
Who's up
1,000,
there?
and Southport gives
Scott?
500, I believe is how it goes.
Who's up at
What was it,
Dan's?
I'm sorry.
We give 1,000.
Yeah?
Boothbay Harbor gives
Out there
1,000,
on Route
and Southport
32.
gives 500, I believe is how it
Okay.
goes.
Good, thank you.
Something out there
Yeah.
for lunch today. They had good lunch.
Are you,
is that it for public comment? Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to review the warrants and sign.
So moved?
second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Isn't that nice to be sitting in that seat?
Yep.
Yeah, we had a nice lunch today up there.
I've said all along, I don't bring my heart to bed.
Big stuff had it.
I've said all along, I do not want to be sitting there.
Why do I have?
When'd you get the new specs, Frank?
Let's see. About shortly after my old one got smacked off my face.
Ah.
No. Yeah, a couple months, I guess.